Lord. But I heard there's been plenty of white cloaks passing through, all heading west. You think maybe old Pedro Niles planning something? Maybe in Altara? That's not our business anymore, Barham. Bryn knew his patient sounded a little frayed this time, but Barham was an old enough campaigner to stick to the matter at hand. I know where they went, my lord, Johnny said. West, on the Johanna Road, and pushing hard by what I heard. He sounded troubled. My lord, I found 2 merchants' guards, lads who used to be in the guards, and had a drink with them. Happens they were in a stew called the Good Night's Ride. Girl Mara came in and asked for a job singing. She didn't get it. Didn't want to show her legs the way the singers in most of these places do. Because who can blame her? And she left. From what Barham told me, it was right after that they all set off west. I don't like it, my lord. She isn't the kind of girl to want a job in a place like that. I think she's trying to get away from that Dallin fellow. Strangely, despite the lump on his head, Johnny had no animosity toward the 3 young women. It was his opinion, often expressed since leaving the manor, that the girls were in some sort of predicament and needed to be rescued. Bryn suspected that if he did catch up to the young women and take them back to his estate, Johnny would be after him to turn them over to Johnny's daughters to mother. Barham had no such feelings. Hilatan, he scowled. Or maybe Altara, or Amadisia. We'll kiss the Dark One getting them back. Hardly seems worth the annoyance for a barn and some cows. Bryn said nothing. They had followed him this far, and Murundi was a bad place for Ackerman. Too many border troubles over too many years. Only a fool would chase a after an Oathbreaker's eyes. How much bigger a fool to follow halfway across the world? Those lads I talked to, Johnny said diffidently. My lord, it seems a lot of the old lads who served under you are being sent off. Emboldened by Bryn's silence, he went on. Lots of new fellows in. Lots. Those lads said at least 4 or 5 for everyone told he wasn't wanted anymore. The sort that like to cause trouble more than stop it. There's some calling themselves the White Lions, who only answer to this Gabriel. He spat to of Andor, but not to the Queen. That's no longer our business either. Barham had his tongue stuffed into his cheek, the way he always did when he knew something he either did not want to tell, or was not sure was important enough. What is it, Barham? Out with it, man. The leather-faced fellow stared at him in amazement. Barham had never figured out how Bryn knew he was holding back. Well, my lord, some of the folks I talked to said some of those white guys was asking questions about a girl sounds like Sarah. Wanted to know who she was, where she went, like that. I heard they get real interested when they learned she was gone. If they're after her, she could be hanged before we ever find her. If they have to go to the trouble of chasing her down, they might not ask too many questions about whether she's really a dark friend. Or whatever it is they're after her for. Bryn frowned. White clothes. What would the Children of the Light want with Mara? He would never believe she was a dark friend. But then, he had seen a baby-faced young fellow hanged in Camelin. A dark friend who had been teaching children in the streets about the glories of the Dark One. The great Lord of the Dark. The lad had killed him in 3 years, as near as could be discovered, when they looked like turning him in. That girl is no dark friend, and I'll stake my life on it. White Cloaks were suspicious of everyone, and if they took it into their heads that she had fled Lugard to avoid them. He booted Traveler to a canter. The big-nosed bay gelding was not flashy, but he had endurance and courage. The other two caught up soon enough, and and they kept their mouths shut, seeing the mood he was in. 2 miles or so from London, it turned off into a thicket of oak and wood. The rest of his men had made a temporary camp here, in a clear space under thick, spreading oak limbs. Several small, smokeless fires were burning. They would take any opportunity to brew up some tea. Some were dozing. Sleep was another thing an old soldier never missed a chance to snatch. Those awake kicked the rest out of their naps, and they all looked up at him. For a moment, he sat his saddle, studying them. Gray hair and bald heads and age-creased faces. Still hard and fit, but even so.
Hey, Fire, how you doing, bro?
Because he had to know why a woman had broken an oath. Maybe with white folks after them. No telling how far or how long from home before it was done. If he turned back now, they would have gone more than a month before they saw Core Springs again. If he went on,
hell yeah.
the chase would stop short of the Arth Ocean.
I usually show up there with my brother.
And himself.
Usually don't say much, usually just have it playing.
He had no call to ask them to try snatching those white folk hands. He could leave Mara to white folk justice. We will be heading west, he announced. And immediately there was a scramble of
I tried to make it here and there to different ones.
We will have to press hard.
Let's do a dab of some witch's brew.
If I can. But if not, there's no telling where they'll lead us. You could see Johanna or Amador or Abu Dar before we're done. You think so? You'll find out how tough you are if we reach Abu Dar. They've taverns there where the barmaids skin Ilianas for dinner and spit white cloaks for sport. They laugh harder than the just as well. We won't worry with you along, my lord. Van cackled, stuffing his tin cup into his saddlebags. His face was wrinkled. I hear you had a run-in with the Amarin herself once, and John Sylvan kicked him on the ankle, rounded on the younger man, gray hair, but still younger, with a clenched fist. Why'd you do that, Sylvan? You want a broke head? You just... What? The meaningful glares Sylvan and some of the others were giving him finally sank in. Oh, yes. He buried himself in checking the saddle, but no one was laughing anymore. Red forced his face to relax from stillness. In the past. The woman whose bed he had shared, he had thought. Just because that woman looked at him as though she had never known him was no reason to stop him. Just because she came on pain of death for giving her the advice he had sworn to give.
That's definitely a good one there.
Who had suddenly appeared in Cambridge.
So you can see them.
It was no longer any concern of his. She had told him, in a voice as flat and cold as smooth ice, that his name would never be spoken in the palace again. That only his long service kept her from sending him to the headsman for treason. Treason. He needed to keep speaking, especially if this turned into a long chase. Hooking a knee around the high cantle of his saddle, he took out his pipe and pouch and filled his pipe with tobacco.
All right.
It was carved with a wild bull collared with the rose crown of Andor. For 1,000 years, that had been the sign of the House of Bryn. Strength and courage in the service of the Queen. He needed a new pipe. This one was old. I didn't come out of that as well as you might have heard.
Not just yet, but with these books, you can never tell. Be right back, everyone.
It was some 3 years ago. The Amalan was making a progression. Arien, Tyr, Ilion, and finishing up in Camelin before returning to Tar Valon. At that time, we were having problems with Merendian border lords, as usual. Laughter rippled. They had all served on the Merendian border at one time or another. I had sent some of the guards down to set the Merendians straight on who owned the sheep and cattle on our side of the border. I never expected the Amalan to take an interest. He certainly had their attention. Preparations to leave were still going on, but more slowly. Swan Sanche and Elida closeted themselves with Morghese. There, he had said her name again, and it did not even smart. And when they came out, Morghese was half thunderhead, with lightning shooting out of her eyes, and half 10-year-old who'd been hauled up by her mother for stealing honey cakes. She's a tough woman. The caught between Elida and he shook his head, and they chuckled. Aes Sedai attentions were one thing none of them envied lords and rulers.
Oh, damn. Give me 1 second, I forgot something.
I asked her to discuss it with me in private. And Swan Sanche jumped all over me. In front of half the court, she chewed me up one side and down the other like a raw recruit. Said if I couldn't do as I was told, she'd use me for fish bait. He had to beg her pardon before it was done, in front of everyone, for trying to do as he had been sworn to do, but there was no need to do that. Even at the end, he had not been sure that she would not make Morghese behead him, or have it done herself. Must have meant to catch herself a mighty big fish, someone laughed, and others joined in. The upshot was, Bryn went on, my hide got singed and the guards were ordered back from the border. So if you're looking to me to protect you in Ibn Dar,
I had to get my pen.
just remember it's my opinion those barmaids run out to dry along with the rest of us. They roared with mirth. Did you ever find out what it was about, my lord? Johnny wanted to know. Bryn shook his head. Aes Sedai business of some sort, I expect. They don't tell the likes of you and me what they're up to. That earned a few chuckles as well.
Cheers.
They mounted up with an alacrity that belied their ages. Some of them are no older than me, he thought wryly.
This one is
chasing after a pretty
Sunset Sherbert.
His daughters, if not his granddaughters. I only want to know why she broke oath, he told himself firmly. Only that. Raising his hand, he stepped forward, leaving a trail of dust. It would take hard riding to catch up, but he meant to. In Ebou Dar, or the pit of doom, he would find them.
Chapter 13. A small room in Ciemba. Elaine held herself against the side of the coach on its leather hinges, trying to ignore Nynaeve's sour face across from her. The curtains were drawn back, despite a sprinkling of dust that sometimes whipped through the windows. The breeze blew away some of the late afternoon heat. Rolling forested hills streamed past, the woods occasionally broken by short stretches of farmland. A lord's manor, in the fashion of Amadisia, topped one of the hills a few miles from the road. A huge stone foundation 50 feet high, with an elaborate wooden structure atop that, all ornate balconies and red-tiled roofs. Once it all would have been stone, but many years had passed since the fortress in Amadisia, and the king's law now required the wooden construction. No rebel lord would be able to hold out against the king for long. Of course, the children of the light were exempted from that law. They were immune to a number of Amadisian laws. She had had to learn something of the laws and customs of other countries from the time she was a child. Cleared fields dotted the distant hills too, like brown patches on a mostly green cloth, the men working them seeming hands. Everything looked dry. One bolt of lightning would set a fire that could burn for leagues. But lightning meant rain, and the few clouds in the sky were too high and thin for them. Idly she wondered whether she could make it rain. She had learned considerable control over weather. Still, it was very difficult if you had to begin with nothing. "Is my lady bored?" Nynaeve asked acidly. "The way my lady is staring at the countryside, down my lady's nose, I think my lady must want to travel faster." Reaching back
to let it cool down a little too fast.
Small flap and shouted,
"Give that one another
"More
go."
speed, Tom. Don't argue with me. You hold your tongue premature and thief catcher. I said more speed. The wooden flap fell. You could still hear Tom muttering loudly, cursing very likely. Nynaeve had been barking at the man all day. A moment later, his whip cracked, and the coach racketed ahead even faster, rocking so hard that both women bounced on the golden-colored silk seats. Had been thoroughly dusted when Tom bought the vehicle, but the padding had long since gone hard. Yet, jounced about as she was, the set of Nynaeve's jaw said she would not ask Tom to slow again right after ordering him to go faster. Please, Nynaeve.
That's nice. I want a train wreck.
The other woman cut her off. Is my lady uncomfortable?
And then this would be the next one.
Ladies are used to comfort, the sort of thing a poor maid wouldn't know about. But surely my lady wants to make the next town before dark, so my lady's maid can serve my lady's supper and turn down my lady's bed. Her teeth clicked
this
shut
one
as
is
the seat coming up met her coming down, and she glowered at
let's get this better background to it.
Elaine sighed heavily.
Some Island OG.
Back in Mardisen. A lady never traveled without a maid, and two ladies would probably have a pair. Unless they put Tom or Julian in a dress, that meant one of them. Nynaeve had seen that Elaine knew more of how ladies behaved. She had put it very gently, and Nynaeve usually knew sense when she heard it. Usually, but that was back in Mistress Mercura's shop, after they had filled the two women with their own horrible concoction. Leaving Mardisen, they had traveled hard until midnight to reach a small...
Yeah, I didn't know OG. It's not too bad. I actually looked it up. It was a cross between...
Waking before first light yesterday to push
excuse
on,
me.
skirting around
Legend OG.
Neither of them
and
were taken for anything but what they claimed on sight.
Orange Blossom Trails.
About passing through a great city full of white
it definitely has a citrusy flavor to it. And it's a really good indica. Well, it's a hybrid indica dominant.
Started last night at a place called Bellon, on a muddy stream grandly named the Gaian River, some 20 miles or so beyond the capital. The Bellon Ford Inn was larger than the first, and Mistress Alfara, the innkeeper, offered the Lady Morellin a private dining room, which Elaine could not very well refuse. Mistress Alfara had been sure that only the Lady Morellin's maid, Nana, would know how to serve her properly. Ladies did require everything just so, the woman said, as well they should, and her girls were simply not used to ladies. Nana would know exactly how the Lady Morellin wanted her bed turned down, and would prepare her a nice bath after a hot day of travel. The list of things that Nana would do exactly right for her mistress had been endless. Elaine was not sure whether Amadisian nobility expected such, or Mistress Alfara was just getting work out of an outlander. She had tried to spare Nynaeve.
It was a lot smoother than the other two.
As you wish, and my lady is most particular, as the innkeeper. She would have seemed a fool, or at least odd, to press it. They were trying to avoid attracting undue attention. As long as they had been in Bellon, Nynaeve acted the perfect lady's maid.
Witch's brew.
In private,
it's real dark right here, but
Elaine wished the woman would just revert to herself instead of bludgeoning her with a lady's maid from the Blight. Apologies had been met with, "My lady is too kind."
But in the light, it's actually like a real golden brown color.
Again, she thought for the 50th
it's just
time.
that because it's more there than, of course, the way I have my lighting. It's real dark, but that one has a little bit more kick in it. The sour diesel is a pretty smooth one too.
She would not ask for the coach to be
hey Benny, how you doing, bro?
As long as Nynaeve did. The woman was so stubborn. I want to reach Tarvalon and find out what is going on.
I almost missed you there doing dabs.
My lady must have a
Let's do another one of some.
I will make my lady a nice tea of sheep's tongue root and red daisy as soon as... Be quiet, Nana, Elaine said, calmly but firmly. It was her very best imitation of her mother. Nynaeve's jaw dropped. If you pull that braid at me, you can ride on the roof with the baggage. Nynaeve made a strangled sound, trying so hard to talk that nothing came out. Quite satisfactory. Sometimes you seem to think I am still a child, but you are the one behaving like a child. I did not ask you to wash my back, but I would have had to wrestle to stop you. I did offer to scrub yours in turn, remember? And I offered to sleep in the trundle bed, but you climbed...
Hell yeah, baby.
Stop.
Same thing I'm pretty much doing.
Like, I will be the maid
dabbing
the
and getting ready for bed.
It would probably be a disaster. Nynaeve would shout at Tom in public, or
to
box
dab
someone's ears. but anything for a little peace. We can stop right now and change in the trees. We chose the gowns to fit you, the other woman muttered after a moment. Pushing the flap open again, she shouted, "Slow down! Are you trying to kill us, fool men?" There was dead silence from above as the coach's speed diminished to something much more reasonable, but Elaine would have wagered the two men were talking. She straightened her hair as best she could without a mirror. It was still startling to see those glistening black tresses when she did look in one. The green silk was going to need a thorough brushing itself. "What was it you were thinking, Elaine?" Nynaeve asked. Crimson stained her cheeks. At least she knew that Elaine was right, but backing down was very likely the apology she would ever give. "We are rushing back to Tar Valon. Do you have any idea what awaits us in the tower? If the Amyrlin truly do give those orders, I do not really believe it, and I cannot understand it. But I do not intend to walk into the tower until I do. A fool puts her hand into a hollow tree without finding out what's inside first." "A wise woman, Leanie," Nynaeve said. "We may learn more if I see another bunch of yellow flowers hanging upside down, but until then I think we should behave as though the Black Ajah itself has control of the tower. Mistress Makura will have sent off another pigeon to Narenwin by now, with descriptions of this coach and the dresses we took, and most likely Tom and Jewelin too. It cannot be helped. This would not have happened if we hadn't dawdled across Tarabon. We should have taken ship." Elaine gaped at her accusatory tone, and Nynaeve had the grace to blush again. "Well, done is done. Moiraine knows Swan Sanche. Perhaps Egwene can ask her if..." Abruptly, the urged to a halt, forward on top of Nynaeve. She could hear horses screaming and thrashing as she frantically untangled herself, Nynaeve pushing her off as well.
This one is
Embracing Saidar, she put her head out
Sunset Sherbet
and released it again in relief. Here was something of a sort that she had seen pass through Camelin more than once. A traveling menagerie was camped amid afternoon shadows in a large clearing by the side of the road. A great black-maned lion lay half asleep in one cage that took up the entire back of a wagon, while his two consorts paced in the confines of another. A third cage stood open. In front of it, a woman was making two black bears with white faces balance themselves on big red balls. Another cage held what appeared to be a large hairy bird, except that its snout was too pointed, and it had toes with claws. That came from the Aiel
Oh, it's a pretty good one.
And was called a capar. Other cages held other animals and brightly colored birds, but unlike any menagerie she had ever seen, this one traveled with human performers. Two men were juggling ribbon-twined hoops between them. Four acrobats
definitely seems to be a
standing on one another's
pretty good
shoulders in
indica.
a tall column, and a woman was feeding a dozen dogs that walked on their hind legs and did backflips for her.
Now the Shadow Diesel's one I try to do only during not so much at night, just because it's sativa.
Was what had the horses rearing in their harness and rolling their eyes, though, despite all that Tom could do with the reins. She could smell the lions herself, but it was at three huge, wrinkled gray animals that the horses gazed, wild-eyed. Two were as tall as the coach, with big ears and great curving tusks beside a long nose that dangled to the ground. The third, shorter than the horses, if likely as heavy, had no tusks. A baby, she supposed. A woman with pale yellow hair was scratching that one behind the ear with a heavy, hooked goad. Elaine had seen creatures like this before, too, and had never expected to see them again. A tall, dark-haired man strode out of the camp, of all things in this heat, wearing a red silk cloak that he flourished as he made an elegant bow. He was good-looking, with a well-turned leg, and very much aware of both things. "Forgive me, my lady, if the giant boar horses frightened your animals." As he straightened, he beckoned two of his men to help quiet the horses, then paused, staring at her, and murmured, "Be still, my heart." It was just loud enough for Elaine to be sure she was
Benny,
supposed to
that's
hear.
badass.
"I am Valan Luca, my lady, showman
That's
extraordinary."
badass. I never knew that. I was wondering about that.
He made another bow, even more elaborate than
Because
the
it's,
first.
well,
Elaine
this
shared a
cart's
look
one of
at
the carts I
Nynaeve,
came back with
catching the
from
same
Michigan.
amused smile that she knew she herself wore. A man very full of himself, this Valan Luka. His men did seem to be very good at
Well,
suiting
should I
the
say the
horses.
last one of the
They
ones
still
that
sorted and
got back from
stamped,
Michigan.
but their eyes were not so wide as they had been. Tom and Julian were staring at the strange animals almost as hard as the horses were.
I gave one to my
More
brother.
horses, Master Luka, Elaine said. Where
I
did they come
smoked
from?
one, and this is the
Giant
other one,
boar
but I
horses,
gave
my
some
lady,
out to some
was the ready
friends.
reply. From
Gave
fabled
one to my
Shara,
mom.
where I myself led an expedition into a wilderness full of strange civilizations and stranger sights to trap them. It would fascinate me to tell you of them. Gigantic people twice the size of Ogier. He made grand gestures to illustrate. Beings with no heads. Birds big enough to carry off a full-grown bull. Snakes that can swallow a man. Cities made of solid gold. Descend, my lady, and let me tell you. Elaine had no doubt that Luka would fascinate himself with his own tales.
Yeah,
But she
definitely is.
certainly
Definitely
doubted
good
that those
nighttime one.
animals came from Shara. For one thing, even the sea folk saw no more of Shara than the walled ports they were confined to. Any who went beyond the walls were never seen again. The Aiel knew little more. For another, she and Nynaeve had seen creatures like these in Falma during the Seanchan invasion. The Seanchan used them for work animals and for war. I think not, Master Luka, she told him. Then let us perform for you, he said quickly.
That's what this
As
one
you
is
this is no ordinary
indica
wandering
dominant
menagerie,
hybrid.
but something entirely new. A private performance. Tumblers, jugglers, trained animals, the strongest man in the world, even fireworks. We have an illuminator with us. We are on our way to Gildan, and tomorrow we will be gone on the wind. But for a pittance. My mistress said she thinks not, Nynaeve broke in. She has better things to spend her money on than looking at animals. In fact, she herself kept a tight fist on all their coin, reluctantly doling out what they needed. She seemed to think everything should cost what it had back in her 2 rivers. Why would you want to go to Gildan, Master Luka? Elaine asked. The other woman did make rough spots and leave them to her to smooth over. I hear there is a great deal of trouble there. I hear the army has not been able to suppress this man called the Prophet with his preaching of the Dragon Reborn. Surely you do not want to travel into riots. Greatly exaggerated, my lady, greatly exaggerated. Where there are crowds, people want to be entertained. And where people want to be entertained, my show is always welcome. Luka hesitated, then stepped closer to the coach. An embarrassed look crossed his face as he gazed up into Elaine's eyes. My lady, the truth of the matter is that you would do me a very great favor by allowing me to perform for you. The fact is that one of the boar horses caused a little trouble in the next town up the road. It was an accident, he added hastily. I assure you, they are gentle creatures, not dangerous at all. But not only are the people of Sienda unwilling to let me put on a show, or even come to one here, well, it took all of my coin to pay for the damages and the fines. He winced. Especially the fines. If you allowed me to entertain you, for a trifle truly, I would name you as patroness of my show wherever we go across the world, spreading the fame of your generosity, my lady... Morellin, she said. The Lady Morellin of House Samared. With her new hair, she could pass for Kyrianan. She had no time to see his show, as much as she would have enjoyed it another time, and she told him so, adding,
I almost forgot I was going to do a dab. Got all zoned out in the book.
Give him something, Nana, to help him on his way to Gildan. The last thing she wanted was him spreading her fame, but helping the poor and those in distress was a duty she would not slight when she had the means, even in a foreign land. Grumbling, Nynaeve pulled the purse out of her belt pouch and dipped into it. She leaned out of the coach enough to press Luka's hand around what she gave him. He looked startled as she said, If you took a decent job of work, you would not have to beg. Drive on, Tom. Tom's whip cracked, and Elaine was thrown back into her seat. You did not have to be rude, she said, or so abrupt. What did you give him? A silver penny, Nynaeve replied calmly, putting the purse back into her pouch. And more than he deserved. Nynaeve, Elaine groaned. The man probably thinks we were making sport of him. Nynaeve sniffed. With those shoulders, a good day's work would not kill him. Elaine kept silent, though she did not agree. Not exactly. Certainly work would not harm the man, but she did not think there was much available. Master Luca would accept work that didn't allow him to wear that cape. If she brought it up, though, Nynaeve would probably argue. When she gently pointed out things that Nynaeve did not know, the woman was quite capable of accusing her of having an arrogant manner or of lecturing. And Valen Luca was hardly worth another altercation so soon after smoothing over the last. The shadows were lengthening by the time they reached Sienda, a sizable village of stone and thatch with 2 inns. The first, the King's Lancer, had a gaping hole where the front door had been, and a crowd was watching workmen make repairs. Perhaps Master Luca's boar horse had not liked the sign, propped up beside the hole now, a charging soldier with lance lowered. It seemed to have been ripped down somehow. Surprisingly, there were even more white cloaks in the crowded dirt streets than back in Mardisen. Far more, and other soldiers besides. Men in mail and conical steel caps, whose blue cloaks...
How there was night going. Hope all y'all staying safe out there.
The King's men and the white cloaks did not seem to like each other at all. They either brushed eyes if the man wearing the wrong color did not
nothing wrong with that.
with challenging stares.
That's why I do it.
Drawn swords. Some of the white-cloaked men had red shepherd's crooks behind the sunbursts on their cloaks.
So other people could enjoy a book and chill.
Themselves, the hand that seeks out truth, but everyone else called them questioners. Even the other white cloaks kept clear of them. All in all, it was enough to make Elaine's stomach clench. But there was no more than another hour's sunlight left, if that, and that was taking into account the late summer sunsets. Even driving half the night again would not guarantee another inn ahead. Driving around this lake might call attention. Besides, she exchanged looks with him, and after a moment the other woman nodded and said, "I have to stop." Then the coach drew up in front of the light of truth. Jewelin hopped down to open the door, and Nynaeve made a deferential look on her face for him to hand Elaine down. She did flash Elaine a smile, though. She would not slide back into sulks. The leather scrip she slung from her shoulder appeared a bit incongruous, but not too much so, Elaine hoped. Now that Nynaeve had acquired a stock of herbs and ointments again, she did not mean to let them out of her sight. From her first sight of the inn's sign, a flaring golden sun like that the children wore on their cloaks, she wished the boar horse had taken exception to this place instead of the other. At least there was no shepherd's crook behind it. Half the men filling the common room wore snowy white cloaks, their helmets set on the tables in front of them. She took a deep breath and a firm hold on herself, still on her heel, and leave. Aside from the soldiers, it was a pleasant area, with high-beamed ceilings and dark polished paneling. Cut green branches decorated the cold hearths of 2 large fireplaces, and good cooking smells wafted from the kitchens.
I gotta put my glasses back together.
The maids all seemed cheerful as they scurried among the tables, with trays of wine and ale and food. The arrival of a lady created little stir, this close to the capital, or perhaps it was because of that lord's manner. A few men looked at her, more eyed her maid with interest, though Nynaeve's stern frown when she realized they were staring at her quickly turned them back to their wine. Nynaeve seemed to think a man looking was a crime, even if he said nothing and did not leer. Given that, sometimes Elaine wondered why she did not wear less becoming clothes. She had had to work very hard to make sure that simple gray dress fit the other woman properly. Nynaeve was hopeless with a needle when it came to fine work. The innkeeper, Mistress Jaran, was a plump woman with long gray curls, a warm smile, and searching dark eyes. Elaine suspected she could spot a worn hem or a flat purse at 10 paces. They obviously passed muster, for she made a deep curtsy, spreading her gray skirts wide, and made effusive welcome, inquiring whether the lady was on her way to or from Amador. From, Elaine replied with a languid hauteur. The city's balls were most enjoyable, and King Ailron is quite as handsome as they say, which is not always so for kings, but I must return to my estates. I require a room for myself and Nana, and something for my footman and driver. Thinking of Nynaeve and the trundle, she added, I must have 2 full beds. I need Nana close, and if she has only a trundle, she will keep me awake with her snoring. Nynaeve's respectful face slipped. Just a fraction, thankfully, but it was quite true. She had snored terribly. Of course, my lady, the plump innkeeper said. I have just the thing, but your men will have to bed down in the stable in the hayloft. I'm quite crowded, as you can see. A troop of vagabonds brought some horrible great animals into the village yesterday, and one of them quite destroyed the king's lancer. Poor Sim has lost half his custom or more, and they've all come here. Mistress Jaren's smile was more satisfaction than commiseration. I do have 1 room left, however. I'm sure it will do very well. If you will send up a light repast and some wash water, I think I shall retire early. There was still sunlight showing in the windows, but she put a hand delicately over her mouth as if stifling a yawn. Of course, my lady, as you wish.
Well, they not really ducking into it. They just went to an inn to go stay for the night.
To keep Elaine entertained as she showed
this time they actually weren't hiding or trying to hide.
She went about the crowding at the inn and how it was a miracle that she had a room left.
They just went to one to go to one because they needed to.
And good riddance to rubbish. About all the nobles who had stayed at her establishment over the years, even the Lord Captain Commander of the Children once. Why, a hunter of the Horn had come through just the day before on his way to Tyr, where they said the stone of Tyr had fallen into the hands of some false dragon, and was it not horrible wickedness that men could do such things? I hope they never find it. The innkeeper's grey curls swung as she shook her head. The Horn of Valir, Elaine said. Why ever not? Why, my lady, if they find it, it means the last battle is coming. The Dark One breaking free. Mistress Jaren shivered. The light send the horn is never found. That way the last battle cannot happen, can it? There did not seem to be much answer to such curious logic. The bedchamber was snug, if not exactly cramped. 2 narrow beds with striped coverlets stood to either side of a window looking out onto the street, and little more than walking rooms separated them from each other or the white-plastered walls. A small table holding a lamp and tinderbox between the beds, a tiny flowered rug, and a washstand with a small mirror above it completed the furnishings. Everything was clean and well polished, at least. The innkeeper plumped the pillows and smoothed the coverlets and said the mattresses were the best goose down, and the ladies' men would be bringing her chests up by the back stairs, and everything would be very cozy. There was a good breeze at night if the lady opened the window and left the door cracked. As though she would sleep with her door open to a public hallway. 2 aproned girls arrived with a large blue pitcher of steaming water and a large lacquered tray
Happy
covered
420.
with white cloth.
Yeah, it's 420 somewhere.
Managed to get Mistress Jaren out.
Let's do a dab for that. That's some island OG.
I think she believed we might go to the King's Lancer even with a hole in it, she said, once the door was firmly shut. Looking around the room, she grimaced. There would barely be room for them and the chests. I am not certain we shouldn't. I do not snore, Nynaeve said in a tight voice. Of course you do not. I had to say something, though. Nynaeve gave a loud harumph, but all she said was, I am glad I am tired enough to go to sleep. Aside from that fork root, I did not recognize anything to aid sleep in what that Makura woman had. It took Tal and Julian 3 trips to bring the iron-bound wooden chests up, grumbling all the while, the way men did, about having to haul them up the narrow stairs at the rear of the inn. They were muttering about being made to sleep in the stables, too, when they brought in the first one between them. It had leaf-shaped hinges. The bulk of their money and valuables were in the bottom of that, including the recovered Turangrial. but one glance at the room, and they shared a look and shut their mouths. About that, at least. "We're going to see what we can learn in the common room," Tom said once the last chest was jammed in. Barely enough space remained to reach the washstand. "And maybe take a walk around the village," Julian added. "Men talk when there's as much dislike as I saw in the street." "That will be very good," Elaine said. They did so want to think they had more to do than haul and carry. And more decent, of course. But hardly here. "Do be careful not to get into any trouble with the White Cloaks now." A long-suffering look passed between them, just as if she had not seen them both with bruised and bleeding.
Yeah, for me it's 120.
But she forgave them and smiled at Tom. "I cannot wait to hear what you learn in the morning," Nynaeve said firmly. She was looking away from Elaine so hard that she might as well have been glowering at her. "If you disturb us before then for less than frolics, you'll learn the reason why." The glance that passed between the two men spoke volumes. It made Nynaeve's eyebrows rise sharply. But once she had handed over a few coins, they left and let the men sleep untroubled.
Gotta clean that
"If
real
I cannot
quick.
even speak to Tom," Elaine began when they were gone. But Nynaeve cut her off. "I'm walking on me asleep in my shift." She was awkwardly undoing the buttons down the back of her dress. Elaine went to help her. She said, "I can manage. You get the ring out for me." With a sniff, Elaine pulled up her skirt to reach the small pocket she had sewn to the underside. If Nynaeve wanted to be peevish, let her. She would not respond even if Nynaeve began ranting again. There were 2 rings in the pocket. She left the golden great serpent she had been given on being raised to accepted, and took out the stone ring. All flecks and stripes of red and blue and brown, it was just too large to fit a finger, and flattened and twisted besides. Odd as it seemed, the ring had only one edge. A finger drawn along that edge would circle inside and out before coming back to where it began. It was a Turang Rial, and what it did was allow access to Telai.
There we go.
Even for someone who did not have the talent that Egwene and the Aiel.
I could take a dab right now, but
all that was needed was to sleep with it next to your skin.
It's nice and clean
Unlike
now.
the 2 Turang Rial they had recovered from the Black Adja, it did not require channeling. For all Elaine knew, even
Let that cool off.
Clad only in her linen shift, Nynaeve threaded the ring onto the leather thong with Lan's signet and her own great serpent, then reknotted and hung it back around her head before lying down atop one of the beds. Carefully tucking the rings in next to her skin, she settled her head on the pillows. "Is there time before Egwene and the Wise Ones get there?" Elaine asked. "I can never reason out what hour it is.
Yeah, it's definitely relaxing. It's
There's
relaxing.
time
Just
unless she comes early, which
chilling, smoking
the
the
Wise
Central
Ones
book.
keep her on a very short leash. It will do her good in the long run."
Because even
She was
after
always
this,
headstrong.
well, of
Nynaeve
course, I'll
opened
stop
her
the
eyes,
book.
looking right at her.
So when I
At
start
her,
up again, like
as if that
tomorrow,
could stand
it'll
for
pick
her
up
as
like
well.
from where I stepped off.
Remember
Stopped
to tell
off.
Egwene to let Rand
But
know
when I
that
go to
I'm
bed at
finished
night,
with
I
her.
usually have
She
another
was
book
not
playing
going to let the woman
on a
start
sleep
row.
timer
Tell her
to where I can just
tell
lay
him
down,
that I
listen to
love
that,
him,
and fall
only
asleep.
him. There. She had it out.
Hey, Grandpa, how you doing?
Nynaeve rolled her eyes
Thanks for
in what was
stopping
really
by.
a defensive way. "If you wish me to," she said dryly, snuggling herself.
How's your
into
night going,
the pillows.
Grandpa?
As the other woman's breathing began to slow, Elaine pushed one of the chests against the door and sat on it to wait. She always hated waiting. It would serve Nynaeve right if she went down to the common room. Tom would probably still be there, and nothing. He was supposed to be her coachman. She wondered whether Nynaeve had thought of that before agreeing to be the maid. With a sigh, she leaned back against the door. She did hate waiting.
Getting all kinds of wax in that
Chapter
part.
14.
I'm gonna have to clean that before long.
The effects of the ring Turang Rial did not startle Nynaeve anymore. She was in the place she had been thinking of when sleep closed.
I'm not
in.
doing too bad,
Great
Grandpa.
chamber in Tyr called the Heart of the Stone.
Just chilling and
A massive
smoking.
fortress called the Stone of Tyr. The gilded stand lamps were
The
unlit,
usual.
but pale light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, to simply be all around her, fading
Well,
into
just
dim
get
shadows in the distance. At least it
a
was not
subscription
hot.
from Audible
It never seemed hot
because
or cold in Tel Runriod.
you get 1 free credit a month
Huge
to
redstone columns
use on
ran off in every
any
direction.
books you want.
The vaulted dome far
And then
above
when you
masked in
get
dim
paid again,
shadows,
or you
along
pay your
with
subscription
more
again
golden
the next
lamps
month,
hanging on golden chains.
you get another free
The
credit.
pale floor stones beneath her feet were worn. The high lords
And that's
of
just for
Tyr
your
had come to
basic
this chamber.
Audible plan.
In the waking world, of
They
course,
have another
only
Audible
Lindar
plan
lords
that's a little
accustomed
bit
to
more
magic,
than what I
but
pay,
they had come ever
but you
since
get
the breaking of the
2
world.
credits every month
Centered
for
beneath the
to
dome
use
was
on any 2
Kalendor,
books you want,
apparently a glittering sword
and you
made of
get to
crystal,
keep them for like
driven half its
permanently.
length into the stone of the floor.
You could
Just
cancel
as
your
Rand had
subscription
left
and still have the books.
She did not go near Kalendor. Rand claimed to have woven traps around
Hell
it
yeah,
with
Grandpa.
sardine, traps that no one
Yeah,
could
Audible.
see. She expected they
It
would
seemed
be
like
nasty. The best of men could be vicious when they tried to be devious, nasty, and just as primed for a woman as for the men who might use that sangreal. He had meant to guard it against those in the tower as much as the Forsaken. Aside from Rand himself, the one who touched Kalendor might die, or worse. That was a fact of Tel Runriod. What was in the waking world was here too, although the reverse was not always so.
Let's
The
see.
world of dreams, the unseen world, reflected the waking world, if sometimes in odd ways, and perhaps other worlds
In
as
1
well.
second, everyone.
Varen Sedai had told Egwene that there was a pattern woven of worlds, of the reality here and others, just as the weaving of people's lives made up the pattern of the ages. Tel Runriod touched them all, yet few could enter except accidentally, for unknowing moments during their own mundane.
But I have
dangerous moments for those dreamers, though they never knew it unless they were very unlucky.
121
Another fact of
audiobooks on mine.
was that what happened to Galena here happened in the waking world too. To die in the world of dreams was to die in fact. She had the sensation of being watched from the dimnesses between the columns, but it did not trouble her. It was not Mogadine. Imaginary eyes. There are no watchers. I told Elaine to ignore them, and here Mogadine would certainly do more than look. Even so, she wished she were angry enough to
See the one that I have?
She was frightened, of course. Only not angry. Not frightened
Did
at
that
all.
turn up again?
The twisted stone ring felt light, as if it were trying to drift up out of her shift, reminding her that she was wearing only that. As soon as she thought
That's
of
the
clothing herself, she was in a dress.
one I
A
have.
trick of Tel Runriod that she liked. In some ways, channeling was unnecessary, for here she could do things that she doubted any Aes Sedai had ever done with the power. It was not the dress she had expected, though. Not good, stout Two Rivers wool. The high neck, trimmed in Gyra Cruz lace, came right up under her chin, but pale yellow silk draped her in folds that clung revealingly. How many times had she called Tara Bonner gowns like this indecent when she had worn them to blend into Tanchico? It seemed that she had grown more used to them than she knew. Giving her braid a sharp pull for the waywardness of her own mind, she left the dress as it was. The gown might not be as she wanted, but she was no flighty girl to go leaping
Hell yeah,
and screaming
Benny.
over it. A dress is a dress. She would wear it when Egwene arrived, with whichever of the wise ones accompanied her this time.
I've had it for a good little while. Because you guys figure I have 122 audiobooks, and you get one a month.
It should not have been necessary.
So I've had it for a little bit.
This particular woman could hear her own name spoken on the other side.
And they also have like
Brigitte? A woman stepped out from among
podcasts you can listen to, and they do have some other books that are free that you could download and listen to and whatnot.
Her short white coat and voluminous yellow silk trousers, gathered at the ankles above short boots with raised heels, were garments of more than 2,000 years ago.
But I pretty much got this
the arrows in the quiver
wheel
at her side appeared to be
Wheel of
size,
Time series,
and so
including
did
the
bow she
prequel
carried.
that I've gotten
Is
from
Gade all about?
just my
None
monthly
either.
subscriptions.
He
I haven't
was
paid
usually
nothing. I
close
haven't
by,
actually
Brigitte,
bought
and he made
a
naive
book.
efforts, refusing to
I've just
acknowledge
bought
her
the book
existence,
with my one free
scowling
credit.
when Brigitte spoke to her. It had been something of a shock at first to find Gadol Kane and Brigitta, long-dead heroes linked in so many stories and legends, in Tel Run. But, as Brigitta herself had said,
because you get this
where better
series,
for
you could
heroes
get
bound to the wheel of time to await rebirth than in a
the
dream,
Lord of the
a
Rings
dream
series
that had
from
existed
Tolkien.
as long as the wheel.
You could
It was
get
they, Brigitta
Stephen King
and Gadol
titles,
Kane
Dean
and Rogosh
Koontz.
Eagle-Eye and Arthur Hawkwing and all the others, that the Horn of Valir would summon back to fight at Tarmangaiden. Brigitta's braid swung
You could
as she
get
shook her head.
Lovecraft all the way up
I've
to
not seen him for some time.
all kinds.
I think the wheel has spun him out again. It always happens so. Expectation and concern both touched her voice. If Brigitta was right, then somewhere in the world a boy child had been born, a mewling babe with no knowledge of who he was, yet destined for adventures that would make new legends. The wheel wove the heroes into the pattern as they were needed, to shape the pattern, and when they died, they returned here to wait again. That was what it meant to be bound to the wheel. New heroes could find themselves bound so as well, men and women whose bravery and accomplishments raised them far above the ordinary, but once bound, it was forever. How long do you have? Nynaeve asked.
Hey,
Years yet,
Fire, how you
surely.
doing?
Brigitta was
Glad
always
you're still
tied
with
to
us.
Gadol, had been tied in story after story, in age after age of adventure and a romance that even the wheel of time did not break. She was always born after Gadol, a year or 5 or 10, but after. I do not know, Nynaeve. Time here is not like time in the waking world. I met you here last 10 days gone, as it seems to me, and Elaine only a day before. What was it for you? 4 days and 3, Nynaeve muttered. She and Elaine had been coming to speak with Brigitta as often as they could, though too frequently it had not been possible with Tom and Julian sharing the camp and standing night guard. Brigitta actually remembered the War of Power, one lifetime of it anyway, and the Forsaken. Her past lives were like books fondly remembered from long ago, the more distant dimmer than the nearer, but the Forsaken stood out, especially Mogadine. You see, Nynaeve, the flow of time here can shift in larger ways, too. It might be months before I am born again, or days.
Hell yeah, Fire.
Here, for me. In the waking world, it could be years yet before my birth. With an effort, Nynaeve suppressed her vexation. Then we mustn't waste what time we have. Have you seen any of them since we last met? There was no need to say who. Too many. Lanfear is often in Tel Run, of course, but I have seen Ravine and Samael and Grendal, Dimandred and Semirhage. Brigitta's voice tightened at the last name. Even Mogadine, who hated her, did not frighten her visibly, but Semirhage was another matter. Nynaeve shivered as well. The golden-haired woman had told her too much of that one, and realized she was wearing a thick wool cloak with a deep hood pulled up to hide her face. Flushing, she made it disappear. None of them have seen you? She asked anxiously. Brigitta was more vulnerable than herself in many ways, despite her knowledge of Tel Run. She had never been able to channel. Any of the Forsaken could destroy her as if crushing an ant without breaking stride. And if she were destroyed here, there would be no rebirth for her ever again. I'm not so unskilled or so foolish as to allow that. Brigitta leaned on her silver bow. Legend said she never missed with that bow and her silver arrows. They are concerned with each other, not anyone else. I have seen Ravine and Samael, Grendal and Lanfear, each stalking the others unseen, and Dimandred and Semirhage each shadowing them as well. I've not seen so much of them here since they were freed. They're up to something. Nynaeve bit her lip in vexed frustration. But what? I cannot say yet, Nynaeve. In the War of the Shadow, they were always plotting against each other as often as not, but their work has never boded well for the world, waking or dreaming. Try to find out, Brigitta, as much as you can safely at any rate. Do not take any risks. The other woman's face did not change, but Nynaeve thought she was amused. The fool woman thought as little of danger as did Lan. She wished she could ask about the White Tower, about what Swan might be scheming, but Brigitta could neither see nor touch the waking world unless she was called there by the horn. You are just trying to avoid what you really want to ask. Have you seen Mogadeen? No, Brigitta sighed, but not for lack of trying. In the usual course, I can find anyone who knows they are in the world of dreams. There is a feel, like ripples spreading through the air from them, or perhaps from their awareness. I do not know, really. I am a soldier, not a scholar. Either she has not come into Tel'aran'rhiod since you defeated her, or... She hesitated, and Nynaeve wanted to stop her from saying what she knew would come next, but Brigitta was too strong to dodge unpalatable possibilities. Or else she knows I have been looking for her. She can hide, that one. She is not called the Spider for nothing. That was what a Mogadeen had been in the Age of Legends. A tiny spider that spun its webs and its bite poisoned beats. Suddenly very much aware of feeling unseen eyes, Nynaeve shivered heavily. It was not trembling, just a shiver, not trembling. Still, she kept the sleek Tarabonner gown firmly in mind, lest she abruptly find herself wearing armor. It was embarrassing enough if that sort of thing happened when she was alone, even more under the cool blue gaze of a woman valiant enough to be a match for Gadal Kane. Can you find her even when she wants to remain hidden, Brigitta? It was a very great deal to ask if Mogadeen knew she was being hunted. Like searching for a lion in high grass armed only with a stick. The other woman did not hesitate. Perhaps. I will try. Hefting her bow, she added, I must go now. I do not want to risk being seen by the others when they come. Nynaeve put a hand on her arm to stop her. It would be a help if you let me tell them. That way I could share what you've told me about the Forsaken with Egwene and the Wise Ones, and they could tell Rand. Brigitta, he needs to know. You promised, Nynaeve. Those bright blue eyes were unyielding as ice. The prescripts say that we must not let anyone know that we reside in Tel'aran'rhiod. I have broken many by speaking to you, much more by giving aid, because I cannot stand by and watch you battle the shadow. I have fought that battle in more lifetimes than I can remember, but I will keep as many of the prescripts as I can. You must hold to your promise. Of course I will, she said indignantly, unless you release me from it. And I do ask you to... No. And Brigitta was gone. One moment Nynaeve's hand rested on a white coat sleeve, the next on empty air. In her mind she ran through a few curses she had overheard from Tom and Jewelin, the sort she would have scolded Elaine for listening to, much less using. There was no point calling Brigitta's name again. She probably would not come. Nynaeve only hoped she responded the next time she or Elaine called. Brigitta! I will keep my promise, Brigitta. She would have heard that. Perhaps by their next meeting she would know something of Mogadeen's activities. Nynaeve almost hoped she would not. If she did, it meant that Mogadeen really was stalking Tel'aran'rhiod. Fool woman! If you don't look for snakes, you cannot complain when one bites you. She really did want to meet Elaine Fleamy one day. The emptiness of the vast chamber oppressed her, all those great polished columns and that sense of being watched from the dimness between. If there really was anybody there, Brigitta would have known.
Hell yeah, Benny. Appreciate it, brother.
That she was smoothing the
Definitely hope you enjoy it.
Hips, and to take her mind
Remember,
off
just
eyes
pick
that were not there, she
a book you
concentrated on
think
the
you
dress.
enjoy.
It had been in good Two Rivers woolens that Lan had first seen her, and a simple embroidered dress.
You could get book one of this series if you wanted.
His love. But she wanted him to see her in gowns like this. It would not be indecent if he was the one seeing her. A tall standing mirror appeared, casting her reflection as she turned this way and that, even peering back over her shoulder. The yellow folds sheathed her closely, suggesting everything they hid. The women's circle in Emmons Field would have hauled her off for a good talking to in private, wisdom or no wisdom. Yet it was quite beautiful. Here, alone, she could admit that she had a bit more than gotten used to wearing something like this in public. You enjoyed it, she scolded herself. You are every bit as much a hussy as Elaine seems to be turning into. But it was beautiful, and maybe not as immodest as she'd always said. Not a neckline cut halfway to her knees like the first of Mayene, for instance. Well, perhaps Barrelane's were not that low, but they were still far deeper than respectability required. She had heard about what Damani women often wore. Even Taraboners called those indecent. With the thought, the yellow silk folds became rippling flows with a narrow belt of woven gold. And thin. Her face colored. Very thin. Barely opaque at all, in fact. The gowns certainly did more than suggest. If Lan saw her in that, he would not gabble that his love for her was hopeless and that he would not give her widow's weeds for a bridal gift. One glimpse and his blood would catch fire. He would... "What under the light is that you have on, Nynaeve?" Egwene asked in scandalized tones. Nynaeve leaped straight up, spinning, and when she came down facing Egwene and Melaine, it would be Melaine, though none of the wise ones would have been any better. The mirror was gone, and she was wearing a dark woolen Two Rivers dress thick enough for the depths of winter. Mortified at being startled as much as anything else, it was mainly at being startled, she changed the dress instantly, without thinking, flashing back into the gossamer Damani, and just as quickly to the yellow Tarabonner folds. Her face flamed. They probably thought her a complete fool, and in front of Melaine at that. The wise one was beautiful, with her long red gold hair and clear green eyes. Not that she cared a whit how the woman looked, but Melaine had been at her last meeting here with Egwene too, and taunted her about Lan. Nynaeve had lost her temper over it. Egwene claimed they were not taunts, not among Aiel women, but Melaine had complimented Lan's shoulders, and his hands, and his eyes. What right did that green-eyed cat have to look at Lan's shoulders? Not that she had any doubts of his faithfulness, but he was a man, and far away from her, and Melaine was right there, and... Firmly she put a stop to that line of reasoning. "Is Lan..." She thought her face was going to burn off. "Can't you control your own tongue, woman?" But she would not, could not back away, not with Melaine there. Egwene's bemused smile was bad enough, but Melaine dared to put on a look of understanding. "Is he well?" She tried for cool composure, but it came out strange.
Let's do one more dab.
Egwene said. "He worries about whether you are safe." Nynaeve let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. The waste was a dangerous place even with the likes of Couladin and the Shaido, and the man did not know the man's passion. He was worried about her safety. Did the fool man think she could not take care of herself? "We finally reached Amadisa," she said quickly, hoping to cover herself. A flapping tongue and then sighs. The man has stolen my wits. There was no telling from the others' faces whether she was succeeding. "A village called Sienda, east of Amador. White cloaks everywhere, but they don't look at us twice. It is others we have to worry about." In front of Melaine, she had to be careful, to bend the truth a little, in fact, here and there, but she told them of Rhonda Makira and her odd and they were trying to drug them. Trying, because she was in front of Melaine with the woman. I've never lied to Egwene before. The supposed reason, the return of a runaway accepted, certainly could not be known in front of one of the wise ones. They thought that she and Elaine were full Aes Sedai, but she had to let Egwene know the truth of that somehow. It might have to do with some plot concerning Andor, but Elaine and you and I have things in common, Egwene, and I think we should be just as careful as Elaine. The girl nodded slowly. She looked as well she might, but she seemed to understand.
Hell yeah, Fire. You have a good one.
The taste of that tea made me suspicious. Imagine trying to feed fork root to someone who knows herbs as well as I do. Schemes within schemes. Serpent is a good sign for you, Aes Sedai, I think. Someday you may swallow yourselves by accident. We have news ourselves, Egwene said. Nynaeve could see no reason for the girl's haste. I'm certainly not going to let the woman bait me into losing my temper, and I certainly wouldn't get angry over her insulting the tower. She took her hand away from her braid. What Egwene had to say brought temper right out of her head.
Excuse me.
Khuladim crossing the spine of the world was surely grave, and
hey, have a good night too, Fire.
So.
Definitely appreciate you stopping by.
Jangai Pass, marching from first light until after dusk, and Melaine said they would soon reach it. Conditions in Cairhien were harsh enough without a war between Aiel on its territory, and a new Aiel war to come, surely, if he tried to carry out his mad plan. Mad. Not yet, surely. He had to hang on to sanity somehow. How long since I was worrying how to protect him, she thought bitterly. And now I just want him to stay sane to fight the last battle. Not only for that reason, but for that one too. He was what he was. The light burned me. I'm as bad as Swan Sanche or any of them. It was what Egwene had to say about Moiraine that shocked her. She obeys him?
Alright, everyone. I'm probably going to call into this life right now. See if I can't lay down and get a little bit of sleep. But I want to thank everyone for stopping by and everyone who keeps coming back and chilling with me. Definitely appreciate all y'all. I might actually do a little game streaming tomorrow too. But I'll definitely be doing another one of my nighttime ones. Definitely appreciate all y'all's support. Till next time, everyone. Y'all stay safe out there.